Working on the old Xplorer here, trying to make it a little more purty to sell it. It does sit outside, so what you gonna do? I don't really have indoor storage for it. But today we're gonna be taking a look at Ammo Reflex foundation coat. This stuff is amazing. I've never seen somebody use it on an ATV though. And we're gonna use Detail King Trimkote and the trim dressing. Now I've used these two before on some Ram boxes for my uncle. Stuff works great for black plastic. As you can see, this machine's seen a little bit of mud. It sits outside. I was using Amazon Mudslinger on it for the longest time, but as most of you know, with Mudslinger or SC1, anything like that you've used, does not work very well as far as keeping the dust off. It almost makes it harder to scrub if you just do light trail riding. If you're in heavy mud all the time, yeah, it's great. Mud clumps tend to wash off easier, but the dust itself doesn't. So, I already did a little experimenting with the Reflex. I emailed Larry the other day, the owner of Ammo, and asked him if it was okay to use on, like, both the colored plastic that's non-painted, because you can use that on any painted surface, and glass and polycarbonate plastic, you know, like lenses and stuff here. But I wanted to make sure it was okay for these two surfaces, and he said yes. Now I've already done a test spot here, and it looks okay. It's kind of hard to see. It is a little bit deeper green where I used it. The machine is 23 years old, 22 years old. No, sorry, I can't do math today. 24 years old. So, I did put it on this plastic, and it did work. It didn't really restore it, so that's why we're going to the Detail King stuff. However, the real shocker to me was, here it's really hard to tell the difference, because I didn't tape it off, and it just kind of smudged into itself. But I did the cluster here, or the instrument pod, and you can see, yeah, it doesn't fill the scratches in perfectly, but it does make it look a lot nicer. And while the silicone dressings do tend to fill in the scratches a little neater, or a little more level, because you have a lot of product on there, this stuff tends to lay relatively flat, still gives a little bit of gloss. Not going to make it perfect, but I tell you what, it should not collect dust. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on this machine, hit up all these plastics, clean the hand guards here, and I'll do a couple clips here and there explaining the process, and we'll go from there. Alright, so first thing I did, took the front rack off. If you want access to make this easy, if your ATV allows it, that's what I would do. I'm also going to take the seat off, but that takes about 3 seconds, so I'm not going to go into that. I would take the rear rack off to paint it. It's going to take some taping, I think. Whoever had this ATV before the guy that I got it from, they built this nice rack, and it is a very useful rack, and you can see I've got a Rotopax mount right there on it, because this thing sucks down fuel like it's OPEC country. But they welded it onto the factory mounts there. So in order for me to ever take this rack off, it has to be cut off with a grinder, and I'd prefer not to do that because I'm not a very good welder. So anyways, first step, remove everything off the ATV that you can. That seat will hit with some leather conditioner later, but you're just going to take a towel. This is just a blue shop towel. Microfiber is preferable, but I don't like wrecking my microfiber. So you're just going to scrub everything really well, and we'll cover the black when we get to it, because that takes a little extra scrubbing. This thing was washed not very long ago, but again, it sits outside. You want to make sure you get everything scrubbed and ultra clean with your rubbing alcohol. Now, this machine has not been treated in a long time with any kind of products, so that makes it easier. If you do have a bunch of silicone-based dressing on, and you can see that that actually just helps knock off some of the oxidation. You're going to want to make sure you scrub it really well with, first, some kind of a dishwashing liquid, preferably, like Dawn or some kind of a heavy-duty degreasing soap. Now, normally I would not recommend that because, again, it strips off all your protection, just like if you're doing your vehicle. In this case, though, you need to strip it. We want a nice clean surface for it to adhere to. You're going to take your Reflex and just some kind of a foam pad. Sorry, I lost my foam pad there. I misplaced it. You're going to take your Reflex. You're going to take your foam pad. You can see where I've primed it a little bit already. Just dab a little on there. This stuff takes very, very little. You don't want to oversaturate the pad because you're just wasting product. And yes, this stuff is $50 for that little bottle. Now, we'll talk about cost here in a second. You just want to do straight lines. Now, I tend to overlap a little bit just because there's so many scratches on this. And you can see already, I'm starting to run out of product. It's not filling in. On a vehicle, this stuff goes, yeah, you see, you wipe. On a vehicle, you go by feel. On this, I'm going by appearance. The reason for that is, vehicles, when you have a nice smooth surface, like the Shelby over there, that's been done in Reflex a couple times now over the years. You have a lot less surface area because you don't have all these scratches. So I'm going off of how it looks rather than how it feels. When you're doing a vehicle, you can feel the pads start to grip a little bit. That means you're running low. On this, you really can't. So I'm simply going off of appearance, using as little as possible on the pad. A lot of people are probably thinking I'm crazy for using a product this expensive and this nice. 23-year-old Polaris, but I'm kind of nuts like that. So, just like the vehicle, you're going to let it sit for a little bit. Make sure the pad you're using, you don't care if it gets wrecked, because you're going to catch sharp edges. Grab yourself a microfiber. After a couple minutes, you just buff off. I know it wasn't quite a couple minutes, but the stuff cures pretty quick today. Even though I got the AC on in the shop, when I got out here, it's about 80 degrees. It's been over 100 the last couple days here. So, anyways, you can see I got a little over on the black plastic. I kind of did that intentionally, just so we can see if it affects how that trim coat hits it. So, we will be taping this off to do the trim coat, but I'm going to do the rest of the green first because a trim coat takes a while to set up and do, and I want to do that after I eat lunch, not before. So we'll be back. You can see that really brings that green back though. You look right over there. We'll do a before and after shot outside here. Machine, and got all the green done in Reflex. Like I said, it's not going to totally fill in. You know, this is scuffed up pretty good. That's covered up by the rack though. And it probably looks worse on camera because I got the flash on, because the lighting sucks in here. Some of you might be wondering why I'm doing a 23-year-old machine with Reflex though. Well, originally why I contacted Larry about if you could use it on an ATV is I recently purchased a 2017 Sportsman 850 base in Indy Red, and I love that color. So this is a trial run to see how to restore and protect the plastics on my 17. Now, originally I was just going to do it with the 17. Unfortunately, it was having an issue with either a T-MAP sensor or TPS sensor. I'm not sure which. The dealership has a 30-day guarantee, so it went back there so they can replace it. I'm not going to spend any money, extra money than I have to on a machine that I just dropped a whole bunch of money on. So, anyways, this is the trial run for the 850. Plus, I'm selling it, so I figured the risk was worth the reward. If I tried it out and it looked good, it'll be easier to sell. So, yeah. One of these days I'll do a walk around video of this machine before I sell it and explain exactly what I did to it, because this thing is built. It might not look like it, but a friend of mine has an 18 high lifter and I built this to try and keep up with him. So obviously I don't keep up with him, but it keeps me in the area, so if something happens I can get him out. Anyways, that's it for right now. I'm going to come back out in the afternoon. We're going to hit it with some Trimkote. So this machine should be looking pretty good by the end of the day. Just getting ready to do the trim die here. Taping everything off. The proper way to do this would be just take all the plastics off the machine that you want to do this to, but I'm lazy. So one thing I would recommend you do is scrub everything with isopropyl. Don't just give it a quick wipe. Actually scrub it decent. Maybe use a more coarse towel, or if you have a brush or a sponge maybe. Obviously nothing that gouges the plastic, but especially if your plastics are in good shape, maybe just a quick wipe will do. But when you have heavy oxidation like this one does, you can see here I haven't treated this with anything except hit it with rubbing alcohol really hard, and down here you can see it's all kind of stained and nasty. You can get a lot of that off, and the better your surface is that you're applying any kind of dressing or dye to, the easier and the more consistent it will go on. So that's just a heads up for everybody. A lot of ATVs like this one, they have something down here for grip. Okay, you really don't want to apply too much dressing to that. It'll make it slippery. This is quite coarse. It really hurts your feet if you wear it barefoot. Don't ask how I know that. But what I'm going to try and do is, when I'm applying the dye in particular, just go get yourself a really cheap foam brush or standard brush, whatever you want to use. Something you can load up and just kind of get in there like this. Something you can kind of dab along the ridges. Something you don't care if it gets tore up. Especially if you get in really cheap ones, just get a few of them, okay? That'll be the easiest thing. So I think the next step after this will be the reveal. I'm not going to paint the rack today. I don't have that kind of time, but at some point here I'll get it done. You can see it's whoever painted originally, it was okay, but it's a little rusty now. I've used the crap out of this rack, so you can see actually the mesh here might be kind of hard to see on camera. Now there we go. It's actually sunk in a little bit because how much wood I stack on this thing consistently. So anyways, wait for the reveal. Alright, there she is. Pull her outside here. It looks pretty good inside, but a couple things I'd like to mention about this stuff is be prepared. Yeah, whatever towel you use, this is acrylic. It's almost like paint, to be honest. Whatever towel you use for this step here, it's going to be junk when you're done. Also, I hit it with the second step with this towel, and there was some transfer. So the revival is what gives it the gloss back, whereas that black, it just gets the black. So, and you can see it's a little streaky. This plastic is a little smoother than the rack or the footwells. The rack and the footwell are really heavy reinforced, like porous, just full of fiberglass. It's a lot stronger for obvious reasons. Same with the front bumper, so that stuff actually applies really easy because it soaks up quick, whereas the flares, a little bit smoother of a plastic. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see here. I'm gonna pull it outside what it looks like. I did hit the seat real quick with a little leather conditioner. Make sure you use conditioner and not dressing. Dressing will leave it really, really oily, and the conditioner will really help soften that vinyl up. So, all right, she's outside now, and get a good look at it. Really like how that reflex hits that plastic. It doesn't make it overly shiny, probably because this one's so scratched up. You can see here, this stuff gets a little streaky. One thing I will say about this is, I used this on my uncle's Ram box for him one time, and the streaks eventually go away. So I applied some of that dressing, and that helps cover up the streaks a little bit. It's really hard to apply anything real evenly on plastics like this. You can see there's a couple spots that maybe look a little drier. That'll go away as it sits outside and the sun hits it and it soaks in. So I think that's going to be the conclusion to this video. Looks pretty good for a 23-year-old Polaris, that's for sure. Or 24-year-old, depending on when it was actually built. It's a 97 model, it's a 400. Someday I'll do a walk around video, talk about everything I've done to it. This has been extensively modified. May not look like it from here, but once you start digging into the motor, you can already see there that's not a factory exhaust on this thing. So I'll do a walk around video someday, explain exactly what's done to it. It's lifted, 26s, all that kind of stuff, but there's some real cool stuff going on with the motor. So anyway, so that's the conclusion for today. Pretty happy with the results. So I think I'll be doing this to my 850, and I'll do a video on that when I get to it.